Hey guys, I'm just doing a series on the teachings of New Heaven, New Earth Church, also known as Chinchanchi or SCJ. This is a very, very important episode. We're just going into multiple points to demonstrate why the Bible would call their teaching unsound, unbiblical, interpreting the Bible the wrong way. And we can demonstrate that today. This is a very, very important one, guys. Super important. There's a chapter of the Bible which I believe they describe as the mini book of Revelation. Their whole thing is that they believe you need to understand the book of Revelation, like the symbols and that in it in order to be saved. We can talk about that later, that concept later, but the real thing we're talking about today is the notion that the faithful and wise servant Jesus is talking about here is one specific person. They teach that Jesus is prophesying that a good and faithful servant will come to his household, which they say is the church, in order to give them food at the proper time, which they would say is prophecy and fulfillment explained at the proper time, so people know what to do in order to be ready for Jesus coming back. That's what they believe, that's what they teach. So they believe that the good and faithful servant is one servant. So let's read it, and let's also have a look at the chapter that comes next as well. Um, Chapter 25, and also another chapter which they don't talk about. Luke 12, um, which covers, a similar section of Jesus's teaching about being ready for him from another point of view. If you're a historian, you're going to want to get a full picture of what happened. You're going to want to get multiple eyewitnesses. Here we have, in the Bible, we have multiple eyewitnesses. So to get a full sense of what's happening, is good to include Luke as well because he talks about it. Um, there we go. Why faithful and wise manager who will give the portion of food at the proper time. So Luke is talking about the same thing that is being spoken about in this chapter. Let me just find it again. I don't know why it's gone. Why is it gone? So in order to fully understand, we should take into consideration what both of them have said, because that's just a way to read it. They're both eyewitness testimonies, so to get the full picture, you need multiple perspectives, because not everyone's gonna see everything, or do you know what I mean? It's good to get multiple details. So let's just read it. This is very important, guys. Okay. Therefore, you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Um, this is kind of how they kind of scare you into staying with their church, because they make you feel like unless you do what they say, you're not going to be ready. And no one knows when Jesus is going to come back. But, let me demonstrate and just show why it's wrong. And I think it's going to set people free. Because Jesus said, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And a lot of people are taking on heavy burdens where that isn't the gospel. So let's talk about it. Who then is the good? Who then is the faithful and wise servant whose his master has set over his household to give him food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find him doing so when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if that wicked servant says to himself, my master is delayed, and begins to beat all his fellow servants and eats and drinks with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day he does not expect him, and an hour he does not know, and he will cut him to pieces and put him with the hypocrites. And in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Wow. So I want to point out that when Jesus says, who then is the good and faithful servant, he's not saying who then is the chosen, uh, faithful and wise prophet that's going to come. He's saying, who then out of everyone here is going to be faithful and wise? And I can demonstrate why. Um, and it's also not a prophecy because he doesn't prophesy what the servant is going to do. A prophecy is a prediction, a description of the future. Here it says, here Jesus is talking about, but if he does this, but if he does that. He's talking about ifs. Why is there ifs in a prophecy? He's saying if that servant is wicked. Wait, is the servant wicked or is he faithful and wise? Which one is it? If it's a prophecy, you've got to say which one it is. Is he faithful and wise or is he wicked? Are we saying that Jesus doesn't know? He knows, but it's not a prophecy. It's an invitation to be faithful and wise because we could also be a wicked servant as well. It's not a prophecy, but they're going to say that it is a prophecy, but it's not. Let's look at the next chapter, Matthew 25, because this phrase, faithful and wise, which Luke also, you know, remembers in his own way as well, faithful and wise. Oh, it's the same word. It's the same phrase, guys. Faithful and wise. So it's obviously a phrase they remember, the key phrase. So we're in Matthew 24. If you go to Matthew 25, where there's more parables on how to be ready for Jesus coming back. Very, very good parables. Watch therefore, because you don't know the hour. Um, yeah. The people who were ready are described as wise. Um, and there's another parable as well, which is like how to be ready. And with this one, there's different servants. Some of them do well, some of them don't. The one that does well is called a good and faithful servant, which is very similar to faithful and wise because he's talking about similar attributes, good and faithful. His master said to him, good and faithful, you have been faithful. And it's a prophecy. Sorry, it's a parable, not a prophecy. Testing you. It's a parable. Um, and parables are stories, not a prophecy. It's a story to encourage you to be like a good and faithful servant. You know what I mean? Um, it talks about what happens with the wicked servant as well. So we see in Matthew 24 and 25 similar language. There's a good and faithful and there's a wicked servant. He's showing us what both look like so we can aspire to be the good and faithful servant, the wise and faithful servant. You might be like Joel. I mean, I think it's clear, but I can make it crystal clear. Do you know what I mean? And that's from getting another perspective from our guy Luke. Shout out Luke, man. So he covers like the same topic as we've discussed. So let me just find it for you. Um, yep. Okay, let me. Okay, I think it's like 45, verse 45. Wait, let me find it. Okay, it turns out um I was at the right verse. So much like in Matthew 24, it says, "Therefore be ready." Right here, you must be ready for the Son of Man is coming at hour you do not expect. So it's starting similar to Matthew 24, showing that Luke is covering exactly the same teaching, but he adds a little detail that is not in Matthew 24, which is normal for historical eyewitnesses. He says that Peter said, "Lord, are you telling this parable for us or for all?" And the Lord said, "Who then is the what why faithful and wise manager, to whom his master will set over his household to give them their portion of food at the proper time?" Um, so the response shows that Jesus uh was saying a parable, not a prophecy. It was a parable in order for us to learn to be a good and faithful servant. And guys, this is liberating because it means that um they say Leman he was prophesied. It's not even prophesied, guys. The good and faithful servant is a character in a story. It's not a prophecy. It's a parable. And it's liberating because they make you think you have to listen to Leman he, but you don't. Like, the wise and faithful manager is a character in the story, is someone to aspire to be like, but he's not actual prophesied person. Um, and giving them their portion of food at the proper time just sounds like giving them their food at lunchtime, at dinner time, at breakfast. It just sounds like giving them their food at the right time because that's the right thing to do when you're looking after servants. Do you know what I mean? It's not talking about giving them the prophecy at the right time in history so they can do the right thing at the right time in history. No, it's just talking about giving them the food at the proper time so they eat at the proper time, like breakfast, lunch, dinner. Do you know what I mean? And I just hope this gives people confidence when they're thinking about leaving, and they're like, man, but is like Lee Man he from God? I mean, is he from God? Guys, this isn't even a prophecy, it's a parable. Let's look at a definition of parable. A simple story. A simple story. The good and faithful. On my days, my keyboard's not working again. The good and faithful, the faithful and wise manager is a character in a parable, in a story. It's not a prophecy about a specific person. Um, the prophecies about Christ are very specific and they say what's going to happen. With this story, it's like he might be faithful, but he might be wicked. And it's a story we can learn from in order to be faithful. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, just know that the man he isn't hasn't been prophesied by Jesus, and that is a liberating thing.